The battlefield stretched for miles under the crimson sky of Vexithara Prime. Bodies of various alien species lay scattered across the scorched ground, their colorful blood mixing into dark puddles. The war between the Galactic Coalition and the Zephyrian Empire had raged for 3 standard years, leaving countless worlds in ruins. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen crouched behind a twisted piece of metal that had once been a hover tank. Her squad of 12 human soldiers pressed close behind her, their breathing heavy in the toxic atmosphere. The air filters in their helmets worked overtime to keep them alive on this hellish planet. "Movement at 3 o'clock, whispered Sergeant Martinez, pointing toward a pile of debris 50 meters away. Sarah raised her plasma rifle and peered through the scope. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then something shifted among the wreckage. It wasn't another survivor from their unit. The shape was too large, too strange. As Sarah adjusted her scope's focus, she gasped. Lying half-buried under a collapsed communications array was a creature unlike anything she had seen before. The being was roughly the size of a large earth wolf, but its body was covered in what looked like natural armor plating. Dark blue scales ran along its back and sides, while lighter blue fur covered its belly and legs. Its head was elongated with pointed ears that twitched occasionally. Most striking were its eyes, large, intelligent, and a brilliant golden color that seemed to glow even in the dim light. "What the hell is that thing?" muttered Private Jackson, the youngest member of their squad. Sarah had never seen this species before, despite serving in the Galactic Coalition for 5 years. The Coalition database contained information on over 3,000 known sapient species, and she had memorized most of them. This creature was not in any of those files. "Could be a Zephyrian bioweapon," suggested Corporal Kim, her voice tense. "Remember what happened to Delta Company on Proxima 7? Sarah nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were known for creating genetically modified creatures to fight alongside their regular forces. These bioweapons were typically aggressive, nearly mindless killing machines programmed to attack Coalition troops on sight. But something about this creature felt different. It wasn't moving like a predator ready to strike. Instead, it lay motionless except for the occasional ear twitch and the slow rise and fall of its chest. As Sarah watched, she noticed dark liquid pooling beneath the creature's body. "It's wounded," she said quietly. "Badly wounded to good," Jackson replied. "One less enemy to worry about." Sarah frowned. The creature's position bothered her. It was lying in what appeared to be a Coalition defensive position, not a Zephyrian one. Scattered around it were the remains of Coalition equipment, energy packs, medical supplies, and communication devices. The blast pattern suggested the position had been overrun hours ago. "Wait," Sarah said, studying the scene more carefully. "Look at the equipment around it. That's our gear, not Zephyrian." Martinez adjusted his own scope and whistled low. "She's right. Those are Coalition energy signatures on the equipment. But what would a Zephyrian bioweapon be doing in one of our positions?" The creature's ears suddenly perked up, and its golden eyes turned toward their hiding spot. For a moment, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Those eyes held an intelligence that reminded her of her childhood dog, Rex. Not the cold, calculating intelligence of a bioweapon, but something warmer and more familiar. "Ma'am," whispered Kim, "we need to move. The radiation levels here are increasing. Command wants us at the extraction point in 30 minutes. Sarah knew Kim was right. Their mission was complete. They had successfully planted the tracking devices that would allow Coalition forces to monitor Zephyrian supply lines.
Staying longer would only put her squad at risk, but something nagged at her.
The creature's position, the Coalition equipment, the intelligence in its eyes, none of it added up to a Zephyrian bioweapon. "Check the Coalition casualty reports from this sector," Sarah ordered Kim, who served as their communications specialist. Kim tapped her wrist display and frowned. "Records show heavy fighting here 6 hours ago. 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion was overrun. No survivors reported. What about Allied forces? Any non-human units in the area?" Kim scrolled through more data. "Negative, ma'am. 3rd Recon was an all-human unit, but..." She paused, her frown deepening. "There's a notation here about attached specialists. Species designation unknown. Classification level requires higher clearance." Sarah felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. Attached specialists with unknown species designation meant one thing. The Coalition had been testing new allies. Allies that weren't yet public knowledge. "Ma'am," Martinez said urgently, We really need to go. That creature could wake up any second, and if it is hostile. The creature's eyes met Sarah's through her scope again. This time she was certain she saw something that chilled her to the bone. Not aggression or hostility, but resignation. The creature knew they were there, and it was waiting to die. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Jackson, Kim, set up a perimeter. Martinez, you're with me. We're going to take a closer look. Ma'am, respectfully, that's insane, Jackson protested. If that thing is a bioweapon— It's not, Sarah interrupted, though she wasn't entirely sure herself. Look at its position. Look at the equipment around it. And look at its eyes. That's not a mindless killer. That's a soldier. As they approached the creature, Sarah could see the extent of its injuries. Burns covered much of its left side, and dark blue blood seeped from multiple wounds. Its breathing was labored, and when it tried to lift its head to watch them approach, the effort seemed to exhaust it. Most telling of all was what Sarah found clutched in the creature's front paws. A damaged coalition communication device. Its screen flickering with what looked like a distress signal. The creature had been trying to call for help. Sarah knelt beside the wounded being, close enough now to see the intelligence and pain in its golden eyes. This was no bioweapon. This was someone's partner, someone's friend, someone's family member who had fought alongside humans and been left behind when the position was overrun. The creature made a sound, low and musical, like a cross between a wolf's whine and a bird's song. Somehow Sarah understood it was trying to communicate. Easy, she whispered, the same tone she had used with Rex all those years ago. We're going to help you. The creature's eyes widened in what looked like surprise, then slowly began to close. Sarah realized with horror that it was losing consciousness, possibly dying right in front of them. She had to make another choice, one that went against everything in her military training about unknown alien species and potential threats. But sometimes, Sarah thought, being human meant taking risks for the right reasons. Martinez, she called over her shoulder, get the medical kit. We're taking our new friend home. The creature's breathing grew weaker as Sarah carefully examined its injuries. Martinez knelt beside her with the medical kit, his face skeptical behind his helmet visor. Ma'am, our medical supplies are designed for human biology, he said quietly. We don't know if these drugs will help or make things worse. Sarah understood his concern. Coalition medical protocols existed for good reason. Giving the wrong medication to an unknown species could be fatal. But doing nothing would definitely be fatal. Look at this, she said, pointing to a small device attached to the creature's neck, partially hidden beneath its fur. The device was clearly Coalition technology, a medical monitoring unit used to track vital signs and blood chemistry. Martinez leaned closer and whistled. That's a Mark 7 biomonitor. Latest model. Only Special Forces units have those. Which means this soldier was important enough to warrant our best medical tech, Sarah concluded. She activated her wrist scanner and pointed it at the biomonitor. After a moment, data began flowing across her screen. The monitor is still active, she reported. It's been tracking this soldier's biological functions and adjusting medication dosages automatically. According to this, its physiology is surprisingly similar to mammalian species we've worked with before. The biomonitor beeped softly, displaying a recommendation for pain medication and blood coagulants. Sarah made her decision. She prepared an injection of broad-spectrum painkillers and antibiotics, compounds known to be safe for most carbon-based life forms. As she administered the medication, the creature's golden eyes opened and focused on her face. There was no fear there, only gratitude and a profound exhaustion. It made that musical sound again, softer this time. Kim, Sarah called over her radio, I need you to contact command. We have a situation that requires immediate medical evacuation. Ma'am, Kim's voice crackled back. Extraction shuttles are already inbound for our squad. ETA 15 minutes. Tell them to bring a medical bay. We're bringing a passenger. There was a pause. Ma'am, what kind of passenger? Sarah looked down at the wounded creature, whose breathing had steadied slightly after the medication. The kind that bleeds blue and fights for the Coalition. Over the next few minutes, Sarah and Martinez worked to stabilize their unexpected patient. They sealed the worst wounds with medical foam and set up a portable IV drip to combat blood loss. The creature remained conscious but weak, watching their every move with those intelligent golden eyes. Jackson's voice came over the radio with urgency. Contact approaching from the north. Multiple signatures moving fast. Sarah's blood went cold. If Zephyrian forces were approaching, they would all be trapped. Worse, if they found a coalition medical team treating one of their bioweapons, it could cause a diplomatic incident that might escalate the war. How many? Sarah asked, raising her weapon. 6. No, 8 contacts. But ma'am, these readings are weird. They're not showing as Zephyrian energy signatures. The creature suddenly struggled to lift its head, ears perked forward and alert. It made a series of rapid musical sounds, almost like speech. Then Sarah heard something that made her heart race. Howls echoed across the battlefield. Not human, not Zephyrian, but similar to the sounds their patient had been making. The creature responded with its own call. Weaker, but clearly recognizable as communication. They're looking for their friend, Sarah realized. These must be more soldiers from the same unit. Through her scope, Sarah could see shapes moving through the rubble with incredible speed and grace. As they got closer, she could make out details. These newcomers looked similar to their patient. The same scaled armor, the same intelligent eyes. But these ones were clearly healthy and armed. The lead creature stopped 50 meters away and called out in what was unmistakably speech, though in a language Sarah had never heard. Their wounded patient responded weakly. "Ma'am," Martinez whispered. "What's the play here? Are these friends or enemies?" Before Sarah could answer, her communication unit chirped with an incoming priority message. Kim's voice was tight with surprise. "Command says to maintain position and render any assistance possible. They're calling them Kethrin pack hunters. Apparently they've been working with Coalition Special Forces for the past 6 months. Highly classified." Sarah felt a mixture of relief and amazement wash over her. Pack hunters. That explained the intelligence, the teamwork, the loyalty evident in how quickly they had come looking for their wounded comrade. The lead Kethrin called out again, this time in heavily accented but recognizable Coalition standard language. "Human soldiers. We search for Pack Brother Vex. His beacon shows this location." Sarah stood slowly, keeping her weapons lowered but ready. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Chen, Coalition Marines. Your Pack Brother is here. He's badly wounded but alive." The lead Kethrin moved closer, and Sarah could see the relief in his golden eyes. Like their patient, he was covered in dark blue scales with lighter fur underneath. But this one bore scars and markings that spoke of many battles, and he carried himself with the confidence of an experienced warrior. "I am Pack Leader Torvin," he said, his voice a deep rumble. "Vex is young, on first deployment with human units. We arrived to find position overrun, feared him lost. He was trying to call for help when we found him," Sarah explained. "He's been unconscious for most of the time since we started treatment." Torvin approached the wounded Vex and knelt beside him. The injured Kethrin's eyes opened, and he made a series of soft musical sounds. Torvin responded in kind, then looked up at Sarah with something that looked remarkably like respect. "Vex says you chose to help, rather than flee. This is unexpected. Most species leave fallen when battle is lost." Sarah felt a stirring of pride mixed with sadness. "We don't leave our people behind. And if Vex was fighting alongside Coalition forces, then he's our people too." The other Kethrin pack members had formed a defensive perimeter around their wounded comrade. Sarah noticed they moved with military precision, covering angles and watching for threats with professional competence. These weren't just alien animals. They were soldiers, and good ones. "Your medical assistance may have saved his life," Torvin continued. "This creates obligation, debt of honor." Before Sarah could ask what that meant, the distinctive whine of Coalition transport engines filled the air. 2 shuttles approached from the south, moving in tactical formation. "That's our ride," Sarah announced. "The lead shuttle has a full medical bay. Your Pack Brother will get proper treatment." Torvin's ears flicked forward with interest. "You would share transport? Bring Pack Brother to safety?" "Of course," Sarah replied without hesitation. "Like I said, we don't leave our people behind." As the shuttles landed, Sarah realized she had just made a decision that would change how she thought about the war, about their allies, and about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of different species. The Kethrin weren't just weapons or tools, they were people, with their own honor, their own loyalty, their own families, and they had just learned that humans could be trusted to honor those same values. The medical team rushed off the shuttle with emergency equipment, and Sarah briefed them quickly on Vex's condition. As they loaded the wounded Kethrin onto a medical gurney, Torvin approached Sarah one last time. "Commander Chen," he said formally, "Pack honors debt. You saved Pack Brother when others might have left him for dead. This will not be forgotten. Sarah nodded, not fully understanding the implications but sensing their importance. As both shuttles lifted off from the battlefield, she looked down at Vex, now surrounded by medical equipment but stable and alert. The young Catherine's golden eyes met hers one more time, and she could have sworn he was trying to smile. The Coalition medical station on Kepler Station buzzed with activity as Vex was rushed into surgery. Sarah paced outside the medical bay, still wearing her battle-stained armor. She had refused to leave until she knew the young Catherine would survive. Dr. Helen Morrison emerged from the operating room 3 hours later, pulling off her surgical gloves. Her face was tired but satisfied. "How is he?" Sarah asked immediately. "Stable," Dr. Morrison replied. "The burns were extensive and he lost a lot of blood, but his species has remarkable healing capabilities. The biomonitor you found probably saved his life. It kept him in a medically induced coma that slowed his metabolism and reduced blood loss." Sarah felt relief wash over her. "When can I see him?" "He's awake now, actually. Been asking for the human pack leader who showed honor. I assume that's you?" Through the medical bay window, Sarah could see Vex lying on a specially designed bed that accommodated his non-human physiology. His injuries were bandaged and various monitoring devices tracked his vital signs. Despite everything he had been through, his golden eyes were alert and focused. Torvin sat beside the bed, along with 2 other Catherine that Sarah hadn't met. When she entered, all 3 of them looked up with expressions of respect that made her uncomfortable. "Commander Chen," Vex said in Coalition Standard, his voice weak but clear. "Torvin tells me you risked your mission to save my life." "Anyone would have done the same," Sarah replied, though she knew that wasn't necessarily true. Military doctrine was clear about unknown alien species and potential threats. "No," Vex said firmly. "Most would not. My first deployment with humans was to learn your tactics, your methods of war. I learned much more than expected." One of the other Catherine, an older female with silver streaks in her fur, spoke up. "I am Elder Lyran of the Pack Council. What you did creates great obligation among our people. We must understand, why did you choose to help? Your species could have left Vex to die with no consequence." Sarah considered the question seriously. "Where I come from, we have a saying, no one gets left behind. It doesn't matter what species you are, what you look like, or where you come from. If you're fighting beside us, you're family." The Catherine exchanged glances, communicating in their musical language. Finally, Elder Lyran nodded. "This concept of family beyond blood is not unknown to us, but we had not encountered it in other species. Your actions suggest humans understand pack bond in ways we did not expect." Dr. Morrison cleared her throat. "I hate to interrupt, but I have some interesting medical findings to share. With Vex's permission, we ran full biological scans during surgery." Vex nodded weakly. "The Catherine physiology is fascinating," Dr. Morrison continued. "They're essentially pack hunters evolved for intelligence and cooperation. Their brain structure shows remarkable development in areas associated with loyalty, teamwork, and tactical thinking. In many ways, they're more naturally suited for military cooperation than humans are." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "Humans have to train to work as a unit to overcome individual survival instincts. Catherine are born with pack instincts that make them natural soldiers and teammates. But here's the interesting part. Their brain chemistry shows they can form pack bonds with other species under the right circumstances." Torvin leaned forward with interest. "You are saying humans and Catherine can become true pack brothers?" "The neurochemistry suggests it's possible," Dr. Morrison confirmed. "I've never seen anything like it in the medical literature." Elder Lyran stood and approached Sarah. Despite being shorter than a human, her presence filled the room with quiet authority. "Commander Chen, I must ask a great favor. Vex was on his first assignment with humans, learning to fight alongside your species. His injuries will heal, but the trauma of being abandoned on the battlefield will affect his ability to trust. Your rescue changed that. Would you consider accepting formal pack bond with him?" Sarah looked confused. "I don't understand what that means." "Pack bond is sacred among our people," Torvin explained. "It means you become responsible for each other's honor, safety, and well-being. Pack-bonded Catherine fight together, live together, and die together if necessary. It is not given lightly." "But I'm human," Sarah protested. "I don't know your customs or your language or—" "Pack bond is not about species," Vex interrupted from his bed. "It is about choice. You chose to save me when leaving would have been safer. You chose to see me as worthy of rescue when others saw only unknown threat. This is pack bond behavior. Sarah felt the weight of the moment. These beings were offering her something precious, something that had never been shared with humans before. But it also meant responsibility she wasn't sure she could handle. What would it involve? She asked. Elder Lyran smiled, showing sharp but somehow friendly teeth. Training first. You would learn our ways as Vex learns more of yours. You would fight together when possible, support each other always, and you would help us understand how to better work with your species. The Coalition command structure has been struggling with how to integrate Kethrin units, Dr. Morrison added. Most human commanders don't understand their psychology or capabilities. Having someone who truly understands both sides could revolutionize how we work together. Sarah looked at Vex, who watched her with hope and trust in his golden eyes. This young being had fought alongside humans and been wounded in service to the Coalition. He deserved better than being abandoned, and if accepting this pack bond could help prevent that from happening to others. Vex, she said seriously, if I agree to this, I need to know you understand what you're asking. I'm a soldier first. I go where the Coalition sends me, fight where they need me to fight. I can't promise to keep you safe. Vex's eyes brightened. Safe is not what pack bond offers. Pack bond offers that we face danger together, that neither fights alone. This is all any warrior can ask. Sarah made her decision. Then yes, I accept. The reaction was immediate and profound. Torvin and the other Kethrin began making harmonious musical sounds that filled the room with something that felt like joy and celebration. Even Vex, weak as he was, joined in from his bed. There will be ceremonies, Elder Lyran explained when the singing ended. Rituals to formalize the bond. But for now, it is enough that choice has been made. Dr. Morrison checked her medical displays. Vex's vital signs just improved dramatically. Heart rate stabilized, stress hormones dropping. The psychological impact of the pack bond acceptance appears to be genuinely therapeutic. As if to prove her point, Vex struggled to sit up in bed, looking stronger than he had since they found him. When can I return to duty? He asked eagerly. 2 weeks minimum. Dr. Morrison replied firmly. Your body needs time to heal, pack bond or no pack bond. Sarah pulled up a chair beside Vex's bed. Then we have 2 weeks to figure out how this is going to work. Starting with you teaching me to understand those musical sounds you make. Those are battle songs, Vex explained. Each pack has unique harmonies used for coordination and communication during combat. If we are to be pack bonded, you must learn our songs and we must learn your tactical methods. As the evening wore on, Sarah found herself fascinated by Kethrin culture and military traditions. They were natural warriors, but their approach to warfare emphasized cooperation and loyalty in ways that complemented human tactics perfectly. More importantly, she began to understand why her decision to rescue Vex had meant so much to them. In a galaxy where most species viewed others as tools, resources, or threats, humans had chosen to see the Kethrin as people worth saving. That choice was about to change the entire course of the war. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in the Coalition training facility on Kepler Station, watching Vex move through an obstacle course with fluid grace. His injuries had healed remarkably well, leaving only faint scars beneath his scales. More importantly, the trauma of being left behind seemed to have been replaced by a fierce determination to prove himself worthy of the pack bond. His speed is incredible, commented Major Rodriguez, Sarah's commanding officer who had come to observe the pack bonding ceremony. Intelligence reports suggest a single Kethrin pack can outmaneuver an entire Zephyrian platoon. It's not just speed, Sarah replied, unable to hide her pride. Watch how he moves. Every action has a purpose, every movement conserves energy for when it's needed most. They're natural-born strategists. Over the past 2 weeks, Sarah had learned more about Kethrin culture than any human before her. She discovered that their pack bonds weren't just military alliances. They were deep emotional connections based on shared values and mutual trust. The fact that Vex had been willing to form such a bond with a human had sent shockwaves through Kethrin society. Elder Lyran approached them, accompanied by Torvin and 3 other pack leaders Sarah hadn't met before. The ceremony space is prepared, Lyran announced. But first, there is something you must know. Word of your pack bond has reached the High Council on our homeworld. They have sent representatives. Sarah felt a flutter of nervousness. Representatives? The High Council governs all Kethrin military pacts, Torvin explained. They wish to understand how this bond with humans affects our species' role in the coalition. Your actions have created complications. Good complications or bad complications? Unknown complications, admitted Elder Lyran. Change is always difficult even when it is necessary. They were led to a large chamber that had been specially prepared for the ceremony. The room was filled with Kethrin from various packs, their scales creating a rainbow of colors: deep blues, emerald greens, rich purples, and burnished golds. At the center of the room sat 3 Kethrin unlike any Sarah had seen before. They were larger than the others, with scales that seemed to shift color in the light, and they radiated an authority that made everyone else in the room seem to defer to them. The High Council representatives, Lyran whispered to Sarah, Pack Leader Zethan, Pack Leader Serena, and Elder Krex, who speaks for the homeworld. Elder Krex stood as they approached. His scales were silver with age, and his golden eyes held the wisdom of countless battles. So, he said in perfect coalition standard, you are the human who would bind herself to our young warrior. Tell me, Commander Chen, do you understand the weight of what you do? I'm beginning to, Sarah replied honestly. But I know that Vex fought for the coalition, bled for the coalition, and was willing to die for the coalition. That makes him worthy of respect and loyalty in return. And if the pack bond requires you to choose between human command structure and Kethrin honor, asked Pack Leader Serena, her voice sharp with challenge. Sarah had been dreading this question. She looked at Vex, who watched her with quiet confidence. I believe that true honor serves justice, she said finally. If my human commanders ask me to do something that violates justice, then they're asking me to violate my oath as a coalition officer. If Kethrin honor requires me to do something that violates justice, then it's not really honor at all. The High Council representatives exchanged glances and spoke briefly in their musical language. Finally, Elder Krex nodded. Acceptable answer. But understand, young human, that pack bond means your fate and Vex's fate become linked. If he dies in battle, part of you dies with him. If he is dishonored, you share that dishonor. If he achieves great glory, you share in that as well. I understand, Sarah said. No, Krex replied firmly. You do not, but you will. The ceremony began with all the Kethrin in the room joining in a complex harmony that seemed to resonate in Sarah's bones. She had learned some of the simpler battle songs over the past 2 weeks, but this was something far more ancient and profound. Vex stepped forward and began to sing in solo, his voice weaving through the harmony with heartbreaking beauty. Sarah couldn't understand all the words, but she caught phrases about honor, loyalty, and choosing family beyond blood. Then it was her turn. Elder Lyran had taught her the human response, not a translation of Kethrin words, but an expression of the same concepts in human terms. I choose you as brother in arms, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I choose to stand with you against all enemies, to share your victories and your defeats, to honor your courage and trust in your loyalty. I choose to be pack-bonded now and always. Vex approached and placed his paw on Sarah's outstretched hand. The moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. Sarah felt a rush of emotion that wasn't quite her own. Vex's memories of being abandoned on the battlefield, his fear, his pain, and then his overwhelming gratitude and relief when she chose to help him. But more than memories, she felt his absolute conviction that she was worthy of trust, that humans were a species worth fighting alongside, worth dying for if necessary. The harmonious singing reached a crescendo, and Sarah realized she could somehow hear Vex's voice among all the others, could distinguish his unique musical signature even in the complex weave of sound. Pack bond is sealed, announced Elder Krex, but now we must discuss practical matters. The High Council has made a decision about Kethrin involvement in this war. The room fell silent. Our people have served as scouts and raiders for the coalition for 6 months, Krex continued. We have lost 47 warriors in that time, and gained little understanding of human methods or values. Many on the council believe we should withdraw from the conflict. Sarah felt her heart sink. The Kethrin were some of the most effective fighters the coalition had, and losing them now could tip the balance of the war. However, Pack Leader Zethan spoke for the first time. This pack bond changes things. If humans truly understand the concept of family beyond blood, if they will risk their lives to save our fallen rather than abandon them, then perhaps we have misjudged your species. What are you proposing? Major Rodriguez asked. Elder Krex smiled. An experiment. Commander Chen and Vex will be assigned to Special Joint Operations. They will test whether true cooperation between our species is possible. If this pact bond proves successful in combat, if it demonstrates that humans and Catherine can fight as true brothers, then we will commit our full forces to the coalition cause. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The success or failure of the entire human-Catherine alliance would depend on how well she and Vex could work together. And if we fail? She asked. Then the Catherine withdraw from the war, Serena said bluntly, and you both face the consequences of a broken pact bond, which is a fate I would not wish on any being. Vex stepped beside Sarah, his presence steady and reassuring. We will not fail, he said with quiet confidence. Pact bond is strong, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than any enemy we will face. Looking into his golden eyes, Sarah found herself believing him. They had found each other on a battlefield where hope seemed impossible, had chosen to trust each other despite every rational reason not to. If they could survive that, they could survive anything. When do we start? Sarah asked. Elder Krex's smile showed teeth that would terrify most beings, but somehow Sarah found it comforting. Tomorrow, he replied. Your first mission will be to infiltrate a Zephyrian stronghold and rescue coalition prisoners. The Zephyrians believe humans abandon their wounded and that Catherine are nothing more than clever animals. You will prove them wrong on both counts. As the ceremony concluded and the various packs began to disperse, Vex remained close to Sarah's side. She could feel his excitement and determination through their new bond, but also his absolute trust in her abilities. For the first time since the war began, Sarah felt genuinely hopeful about the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't be facing them alone. The Zephyrian prison complex on Valdris Prime looked like a fortress carved from black stone. Energy barriers flickered between towering guard towers, and automated defense systems swept the perimeter with deadly precision. According to intelligence reports, over 200 coalition prisoners were held inside, including key personnel who possessed vital strategic information. Sarah crouched beside Vex in the rocky outcropping overlooking the complex. They had been observing the prison for 6 hours, mapping patrol routes and identifying weaknesses in the defenses. Guard rotation changes in 17 minutes, Sarah whispered into her comm unit. Torvin, are your packs in position? North and south approaches secured, came the reply. Waiting for your signal. This was their first major operation since the pack bonding ceremony 3 days earlier. Elder Krex had chosen the mission specifically to test whether humans and Catherine could truly function as unified forces. The prison rescue would require perfect coordination between Sarah's human tactical expertise and the Catherine's natural stealth abilities. Remember, Sarah said to Vex, the Zephyrians think you're just an animal. Use that to our advantage. Vex's golden eyes gleamed with anticipation. They will learn differently. Over the past 3 days, Sarah had discovered that the pact bond was more than just a ceremony. She could sense Vex's emotions and intentions, and he could sense hers. It made them incredibly effective as a team. They could coordinate without words, anticipate each other's moves, and provide support exactly when needed. The guard rotation began right on schedule. Sarah watched through her scope as Zephyrian sentries moved between their posts, their reptilian forms moving with mechanical precision. The Zephyrians were methodical fighters, following established patterns and protocols that made them predictable to anyone who understood their psychology. Phase 1, Sarah whispered. Vex disappeared into the shadows with liquid grace. Sarah had learned that Catherine could modulate their body temperature to avoid thermal detection, and their natural coloring provided perfect camouflage among the rocky terrain of Valdris Prime. To the Zephyrian sensors, he would appear as nothing more than local wildlife. Sarah counted the seconds in her head. 30 seconds after Vex vanished, the first guard tower went dark, then the second. Vex was disabling the automated defense systems from the inside, using techniques that combined Catherine agility with human technical knowledge Sarah had taught him. Impressive, came Torvin's voice over the comm. Your pack brother moves like shadow-made flesh. He's just getting started, Sarah replied with pride. The next phase required precise timing. Sarah activated her cloaking device and moved toward the main gate, while Vex created diversions on the far side of the complex. Her job was to plant explosive charges that would blow the gate exactly when the prisoner evacuation began. As she reached the outer perimeter, Sarah's enhanced hearing picked up something that made her freeze. Zephyrian voices speaking in their harsh, clicking language. But she could understand them. The Coalition had given all special forces universal translators. "The animal packs are moving again," one guard was saying. "Command believes they may attack this facility." "Let them come," replied another. "We have prepared special containment units. When we capture some of these creatures alive, we will learn what makes them so effective." Sarah felt a chill of horror. The Zephyrians weren't just planning to repel a Kethran attack. They were planning to capture and experiment on them. She had to warn the others. "Vex," she whispered into her comm, "abort current objective. The Zephyrians know we're coming. They have traps prepared." "Understood," came his immediate reply. Through their pack bond, she felt his concern and determination. "What are new orders?" Sarah's mind raced. The mission was compromised, but 200 Coalition prisoners were still trapped inside. Abandoning the rescue would mean abandoning people who were counting on them, something neither humans nor Kethran could accept. "We adapt," she decided. "New plan. Instead of stealth infiltration, we go with overwhelming assault. But we do it smart." She activated the general comm channel. "All units, this is Chen. Mission parameters have changed. The enemy expects a stealth attack, so we give them the opposite. Torvin, can your packs create enough noise to make them think we're attacking from 3 directions at once?" "With pleasure," Torvin replied, and Sarah could hear the savage grin in his voice. The next few minutes were chaos. Kethran battle songs echoed from multiple directions around the complex, as the packs created the illusion of a massive assault force. Explosions bloomed throughout the facility as Vex, still inside the perimeter, sabotaged power systems and weapon emplacements. But Sarah's real masterstroke came when she accessed the prison's communication system and began broadcasting on Zephyrian frequencies. "Attention, Zephyrian forces," she announced in their own language. "This is Commander Chen of the Coalition Marines. Your facility is surrounded. We know about your experimental programs and your plans to torture captured Kethran. Surrender now, and your personnel will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions." The response was immediate and exactly what she had hoped for. Zephyrian forces began repositioning to defend against the massive attack they believed was coming, leaving the prison blocks lightly guarded. "Vex, prisoner blocks are now vulnerable. Can you reach them?" "Already moving," he replied. Through their bond, Sarah experienced flashes of Vex's perspective as he moved through the facility. His enhanced senses allowed him to navigate the complex layout while avoiding remaining guards. She felt his excitement when he found the first group of Coalition prisoners, humans, Altarians, and even a few crystalline entities who had been captured during recent battles. "Prisoners located," Vex reported. "Many are injured, but most can move. Beginning evacuation." This was the critical moment. Sarah activated the charges she had planted and blew the main gate, just as Vex began leading prisoners toward the exit. The explosion created the perfect cover for evacuation, while also convincing the Zephyrians that the main assault was beginning. But something went wrong. Sarah felt a spike of pain and alarm through the pack bond that nearly dropped her to her knees. "Vex, report. Trap in prisoner block 7, he gasped. "Energy cage. Cannot break free. Prisoners are safe, but I am captured." Sarah's blood went cold. This was exactly what the Zephyrians had planned. Capture a Kethran alive for experimentation. The thought of Vex in their hands being tortured for scientific data filled her with rage unlike anything she had ever experienced. "Torvin, continue prisoner evacuation," she ordered. "I'm going after Vex." "Sarah, no." Torvin's voice was sharp with concern. "That is what they want. It is a trap to capture you as well." "I don't care," Sarah replied, already moving toward the prison complex. Pack bond means no one gets left behind. Ever. She could feel Vex's emotions through their connection. Fear, yes, but also absolute trust that she would come for him. That trust gave her strength as she fought her way through the chaos toward the prison blocks. The facility was in complete disarray. Zephyrian forces were running in all directions, trying to respond to attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Sarah used the confusion to slip deeper into the complex, following the mental connection that pulled her toward Vex. She found him in a reinforced chamber deep in the prison's heart. He was trapped in a cage of pure energy, his scales dulled with pain from the constant electrical discharge. Around the cage, Zephyrian scientists worked frantically to collect data before their facility was overrun. "Let him go," Sarah announced, stepping into the chamber with her weapon raised. The lead scientist, a tall Zephyrian with elaborate scale patterns denoting high rank, turned to face her. "Ah, the human pack leader comes to rescue her pet. How wonderfully predictable." "He's not my pet," Sarah snarled. "He's my brother. And you've made a very serious mistake." The scientist laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "What can one human do against an entire facility?" Sarah smiled grimly and activated a device she had been saving for exactly this moment. An experimental weapon that used Kethran acoustic technology combined with human engineering. The battle song that erupted from the device was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever heard. It was Vex's personal song, the one she had learned during their bonding ceremony, amplified and focused into a weapon that could shatter energy barriers and disrupt electronic systems. The energy cage holding Vex collapsed instantly. The Zephyrian equipment throughout the chamber sparked and died. And most importantly, every Kethran within 5 kilometers heard that battle song and knew exactly what it meant. Sarah had just declared war on behalf of her pack brother. Vex leaped from the collapsed cage and landed beside Sarah, his strength returning rapidly now that he was free from the energy drain. "Pack bond hold strong," he said, pressing his shoulder against hers in the Kethran gesture of gratitude and solidarity. "Always," Sarah replied. Together, they fought their way out of the facility as it collapsed around them. Behind them, they left 200 freed coalition prisoners and a Zephyrian installation in ruins. More importantly, they had proven that the bond between humans and Kethran was unbreakable. As they reached the evacuation point where Torvin waited with the rescued prisoners, Sarah realized that word of the Valdris Prime rescue spread through the coalition like wildfire. In a single operation, a small human Kethran team had accomplished what entire battalions had failed to achieve. More importantly, they had done it by trusting each other completely, proving that the pack bond was more than just ceremony. It was a revolutionary new form of military cooperation. Sarah stood in the Coalition Command Center on Kepler Station, surrounded by the highest-ranking officers in the fleet. Admiral Jackson, the overall theater commander, studied the mission reports with obvious amazement. 200 prisoners rescued, minimal casualties and an entire Zephyrian installation destroyed, he said slowly. "Commander Chen, how did you coordinate such a complex operation with what was essentially a handful of troops?" "We didn't coordinate it, sir," Sarah replied. "We became it. The pack bond allows for a level of tactical integration that I've never experienced before. We weren't separate units working together. We were parts of a single organism." General Morrison, the coalition's chief strategic advisor, leaned forward with interest. "Can this be replicated? Can other human units form similar bonds with Kethran forces?" Sarah glanced at Vex, who stood beside her in the command center. His presence there was itself revolutionary. Never before had a non-human been allowed in coalition strategic planning meetings. But after Valdris Prime, the rules were changing rapidly. "That depends on the humans and Kethran involved," Vex said in his careful coalition standard. "Pack bond cannot be forced. It must be chosen freely based on respect and shared values. Not all of your people are ready for such trust. And not all of mine are ready to extend it," added Elder Lyron, who had arrived that morning with news from the Kethran High Council. "But enough are ready. The High Council has voted to commit our full military forces to the coalition under one condition." Admiral Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "That pack-bonded human Kethran units lead all joint operations. No more treating our people as expendable scouts or shock troops. We fight as equals, or we don't fight at all." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The coalition military structure was based on rigid hierarchy and species segregation. What the Kethran were proposing would require a complete reorganization of how the war was fought. "With respect," General Morrison said carefully, "our command structure exists for good reasons. Unity of command, clear lines of authority, failed on Vexthara Prime," Vex interrupted, his voice carrying an edge that made several officers tense. "Failed on Proxima 7. Failed on dozen other worlds where coalition forces abandon positions rather than support each other. Your unity of command creates unity of fear." Sarah felt Vex's controlled anger through their bond, but also his deeper sadness. He had seen too many coalition defeats caused by species unwilling to risk themselves for each other. He's right, Sarah admitted. I've served in this war for 5 years, and I've seen units retreat when they should have advanced, hesitate when they should have acted, all because they didn't trust the beings fighting beside them. The pack bond eliminates that hesitation. Admiral Jackson stood and walked to the strategic display showing current battle lines. The war had been stalemated for months, with neither side able to achieve decisive victory. "Show me," he said finally. "Commander Chen, I'm giving you authorization to form an experimental mixed unit. Human volunteers who are willing to attempt pack bonding with Kethrin partners. If it works, we'll expand the program. If it doesn't, the Kethrin withdraw from the war and you lose your most effective fighters," Elder Lyran finished bluntly. "Understood." Jackson turned back to Sarah. "You have 2 weeks to prove this concept. Your target will be the Zephyrian stronghold on Arcturus 7. Intelligence indicates they're developing new bioweapons there. Stop them." As the meeting disbanded, Sarah found herself both excited and terrified. The success at Valdris Prime had been with a small team of proven allies. Now she would have to forge pack bonds between strangers, create trust between species that had never truly cooperated before. Worried, Vex asked as they walked toward the personnel offices where volunteers would be interviewed. Terrified, Sarah admitted. What if other humans can't form the same connection we have? What if the pack bonds fail under pressure? Vex stopped walking and placed a paw on her arm. Then we help them understand. Pack bond is not magic, Sarah. It is choice. Choice to trust, choice to protect, choice to see others as family rather than tools. Some of your people already understand this. They just need permission to act on it. Over the next 3 days, Sarah and Vex interviewed over 200 volunteers. The response had been overwhelming. Humans and Kethrin alike wanted to be part of the program that had achieved such spectacular success at Valdris Prime. But as they conducted interviews, Sarah realized that forming pack bonds wasn't as simple as wanting them. The connection required a fundamental shift in thinking that not everyone could make. Sergeant Williams, a veteran of 15 battles, couldn't understand why he should risk his life for alien animals. His application was rejected immediately. Lieutenant, Foster understood the concept intellectually, but couldn't overcome her fear of non-human species. Her Kethrin partner, a young hunter named Zara, sensed the fear and politely withdrew from the pairing. But then there was Corporal Janet Martinez, sister to Sarah's old squad mate, who sat across from a scarred Kethrin veteran named Khyven and said simply, "You've bled for the Coalition. That makes you family in my book." The bond between Martinez and Khyven was immediate and profound. Sarah could see it in their body language, the way they instinctively moved to support each other, the quick understanding that passed between them without words. By the end of the week, Sarah had assembled 12 pack-bonded pairs, 24 warriors who had chosen to trust each other completely. It was a small force, but if her theory was correct, they would be worth 10 times their number in traditional units. The night before they departed for Arcturus 7, Sarah found herself unable to sleep. She walked through the ship's corridors, checking on her new unit. What she found both impressed and worried her. In the common area, she discovered Martinez teaching Khyven to play poker while he taught her Kethrin strategy games. The easy camaraderie between them reminded Sarah of her own relationship with Vex, but she wondered if it would hold under combat stress. Private Chen, no relation, despite the name, and his Kethrin partner Vis were practicing combat formations, moving together with a fluid grace that spoke of deep trust. But Chen was young, barely 19, and Vis was even younger. Sarah hoped their bond would give them wisdom to survive their first real battle. The most surprising pair was Captain Roberts, a crusty veteran who had initially refused to work with non-humans, and Elder Thane, an ancient Kethrin who had fought in wars before humans had even achieved spaceflight. Somehow they had connected over shared memories of loss and determination to prevent others from experiencing the same pain. "Having doubts?" Vex asked, appearing beside her in the corridor. "Many," Sarah admitted. "These people are trusting me with their lives, betting that pack bonds will keep them alive in situations where traditional tactics have failed. What if I'm wrong?" "You are not wrong," Vex said with quiet confidence. "But you are not completely right either. Pack bond will not make them invincible. It will make them family. And family fights harder, endures more, and sacrifices everything for each other. That is why we will win. Sarah looked at her partner, this being who had started as a wounded stranger on a battlefield and become the most important person in her life. If they could build such trust from nothing, if their bond could survive everything they had faced together, then perhaps there was hope for all the others. Tomorrow we find out if love is stronger than war, she said quietly. Love always wins. Vex replied. The question is how much war we must endure before it does. As they prepared for sleep, Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. The outcome of the next mission would determine not just the fate of the coalition, but the future relationship between dozens of species across the galaxy. Either they would prove that cooperation and trust could overcome any enemy, or they would fail spectacularly and doom the galaxy to endless conflict between beings who saw each other as strangers rather than family. The Battle of Arcturus. 7 would decide the fate of everything they had built together.